Chapter 1041. While Ling Xiaoqi was talking, Su Yiyan had been carefully observing her expression. When he was sure that she didn't force herself to talk about that man, he heaved a sigh of relief. He knew that she had finally let it go. Yes. You've grown up. You're no longer a child. How can a child fall in love with someone? I was thinking too much. I didn't tell you before because I was worried that you'd do something stupid on impulse. You're just a girl after all. Those people have money and power and they'll do anything to achieve their goals. Who knows what kind of despicable things they'll do. It's different now. Someone has someone to protect her. She's confident and doesn't need me to worry about her. That's good. Ling Xiaoqi was stunned for a long time before she realized that Su Yiyan was making fun of her. Her face flushed red, but she didn't refute him. Ning Xiyuan had indeed helped her a lot this time. Su Yiyan was laughing, but he was still thinking about business. Since you already know the twists and turns of this, what are you going to do? The key to this matter wasn't the man who had tried to seduce her, but Ling Xiaoqi's cheap father, who still wanted to bring her back to acknowledge her ancestors and become a puppet. This person had appeared before, but Su Yiyan had used some tricks to chase him back to his original position. He couldn't even take care of himself and wouldn't have the chance to find trouble with Ling Xiaoqi. However, this wasn't a long-term plan. If he wanted to solve this once and for all, he had to think of another way. Actually, Xiyuan has discussed this with me. What did he say? He said that if I'm willing, he can help me destroy their family and take over their business under his name. Then what? Ling Xiaoqi avoided Su Yiyan's gaze and said embarrassedly, then give it to me as a betrothal gift. Betrothal gift? Su Yiyan felt that he had been shown off. He said with a subtle expression, so, he's going to propose to you? Ling Xiaoqi was stunned. For a moment she didn't know how to answer. Su Yiyan didn't continue on the topic of the couple. He only asked tentatively, what do you think? Ling Xiaoqi pursed her lips. After a long silence she said, actually I don't really want it. No, you have to. You have to. Yin? Ling Xiaoqi looked at Su Yiyan in surprise and confusion. That's his love for you and it's what you deserve. Su Yiyan held Ling Xiaoqi's hand and said earnestly, you have to understand that letting that man take you home, force you to be his daughter, and then force you to marry the son-in-law he likes and give birth to an heir with his blood to inherit his family property is completely different from your boyfriend buying his family property and giving it to you as a betrothal gift. The former means forcing, coercion, bullying, and oppression. The initiative is in the hands of others, and you are the one who is controlled. The latter means that the initiative is in your hands. As long as you're willing, no one can force you. As long as you want, you can even make those who you don't like and who have let you and Andy Ling down pay the price. Ling Xiaoqi narrowed her eyes. You mean, why did that man let your mother down? Wasn't it because he thought he was extraordinary and couldn't bear to give up his wealth and status? He was a scum in human skin. Without these things, do you think he can still live a decent life? Chapter 1042. Ling Xiaoqi lowered her eyes slightly and still didn't speak. Su Yiyan could tell that she was wavering. He smiled faintly and said, Auntie Ling, and you have suffered so much because of this man. You even had to bear some bad names because of him. I don't believe that you don't hate him at all. This is a good opportunity. You don't have to trouble Ning Xiyuan with this. He's your boyfriend. It's only right for him to protect you. Moreover, this isn't difficult for him. Ling Xiaoqi's cheap father had some family connections, but those family connections were really not enough in front of the Ning and Qi families. If Ning Xiyuan really wanted to mess with him, it was only a matter of time before his family's company fell into Ling Xiaoqi's hands. Being kind to your enemy is being cruel to yourself. Ling Xiaoqi nodded seriously. I understand. I'll consider it seriously. By the way, when you ask Ning Xiyuan to keep an eye on that man, don't forget to keep an eye on his wife. A person who has nothing is more dangerous than an uncivilized beast when he goes crazy. With Su Yiyan's reminder, Ling Xiaoqi finally remembered that the man had a wife who had a marriage alliance with him. That wife even gave birth to a son for him. However, the son died in an accident, and he couldn't have another child. That was why he thought of her. Although Ling Xiaoqi didn't have a child yet, she put herself in his shoes. If her husband couldn't wait to pick up another woman's child and come back to snatch her child's things when her child had just died in an accident, she would probably go crazy on the spot. Ling Xiaoqi hadn't met Qin Fangda's first wife, so she didn't know what kind of person she was. However, while one shouldn't have the intention to harm others, one should still be wary of others. I'll mention this to him. Su Yiyan wasn't particularly close to Ning Xiyuan, but Su Yiyan thought highly of his ability and how much he cared about Ling Xiaoqi. Therefore he didn't pay much attention to this matter after that. On the third day after Su Yiyan's family returned, the Li family hurriedly came looking for them. Along with them were Song Linghua and his wife. Strictly speaking, although Song Yunyuan's matter had nothing to do with the two elders, it was more or less because Song Yunyuan used their names to intimidate others. The two elders still felt a subtle sense of guilt towards Su Yiyan. When they heard that the Li family was coming to visit Su Yiyan, they hurriedly followed along and even brought along a large pile of gifts. Su Yiyan had just come down from upstairs when he heard the announcement. He was shocked by the group of people. "It's good that you're here. Why did you bring so many things?" "These are gifts from my family to thank you." Li Annam's limbs were still tightly wrapped like before, but there was an additional cap on his head and a mask on his face. Although it was still tightly covered, at least he was willing to reveal his skin except for his facial features. It was a big improvement. This time, besides Grandpa and Grandma Li, Li Annam's parents also came along with Li Annam. Mother Li was a very elegant middle-aged woman. Perhaps because of her daughter's misfortune, she faintly exuded a melancholy aura. However, when she heard her daughter's words, the expression on her face suddenly became more lively. She smiled faintly and said, "Nan is right. I heard from my family that Miss Su's scar removal ointment is very effective." Nan previously. Chapter 1043. When Mother Li said this, she subconsciously glanced at her daughter. Her eyes were slightly red, but she quickly stabilized her emotions and revealed a hint of obvious joy in her eyes. "She is now willing to communicate with us and cooperate with the treatment. This is something we didn't dare to imagine before. This is all thanks to Miss Su. You are our family's benefactor. I hope you can accept this small token of appreciation. In the future, please take care of Nan." Frankly speaking, when the two elders wanted to bring Li Annam over, the couple was opposed to it. In the past few years they had sought out countless well-known doctors for Li Annam. They didn't think that a young man in his early 20s could really help them solve their problem. Who knew if bringing a child over would cause harm to her again? But who would have thought that it was this young man, whom they didn't have any hope for at the beginning, who helped their disheartened daughter take that crucial step forward? "You flatter me. I just did what I could. The focus is still on Miss Li. If she is not willing, no one can force her." That was true, but if it wasn't for Su Yiyan's scar removal ointment that gave Li Annam hope of recovery, how could she walk out of this dead end and pull herself together again? Mother Li was very grateful to Su Yiyan, but she could tell that Su Yiyan didn't like to take on jobs, so she didn't continue to flatter her. She just hid this gratitude in her heart. Su Yiyan said a few words to Mother Li, then turned her attention to Song Linghua and her husband. "Auntie Song, you are again?" Song Linghua and Luo Baoging looked at each other and said awkwardly, "You must have suffered a lot this time. This is a little token of our appreciation to help you calm down." "You are too polite." Su Yiyan's eyes flashed. She knew what the two were referring to, but she didn't expose them. She smiled faintly and asked, "Auntie Song, how have you been? Did you encounter any troubles?" Of course there were troubles. Just as Su Yiyan had predicted, Song Yunyuan was arrested. Her family would definitely seek help from Song Linghua, a relative in China. Song Linghua didn't know how these people had the audacity to order her around. Anyway, she didn't spoil them. He directly told them that he couldn't help, and neither could Luo Baoging. At the same time, he also provoked them and admitted that all of this was Song Yunyuan's own doing. He deserved to end up like this. If they were smart, they would treat it as if they didn't have this daughter in the future. They would live their lives honestly and not engage in those crooked practices. Perhaps they could still live the rest of their lives well. Otherwise, once these words were spoken, the consequences could be imagined. Song Yunyuan's parents cursed over the phone. Song Linghua couldn't be bothered to be long-winded with them. She simply hung up and blocked them, strangling all of their curses in the cradle. However, to be able to raise a daughter like Song Yunyuan, her parents weren't easy to deal with. Even though Song Linghua blocked them, they still had ways to harass them. However, this situation didn't last long. Xuanhuan kept her word. She said that she would send Song Yunyuan's relatives to accompany her, so she sent them in. The Song family had no power to fight back. After losing several talents, they finally understood that Song Linghua's warning was not groundless. They chose to admit defeat before all the members of the family fell, returning their family's peace. "It's okay. It's all settled." Chapter 1044. Su Yiyan was just asking casually. She wasn't very interested in the Song family's affairs. She quickly turned her attention to the young man beside Li Annam who looked strangely familiar. Today, Other than Lian Nam's grandfather and grandmother who had been here once before, her parents were also here. Other than them, there was this young man who had a subtle expression and looked at her from time to time. This is... When Su Yiyan took the initiative to ask, Mrs. Li and the others hurriedly introduced him. This is my nephew, my sister's child. He and his sister grew up together and have always been very close. Today, when he heard that we were coming, he insisted on coming to see us. Mrs. Li said as she waved at the young man. Jihong, say hello to Miss Su. Jihong? Su Yiyan was stunned. In Jihong? Wen Jingping's newly hooked up with a capable young actor? It can't be such a coincidence. Yin Jihong was a little surprised when he heard Su Yiyan call out his full name. He frowned slightly. You know me? Su Yiyan didn't expect that the person she helped treat for Song Linghua's sake would be Yin Jihong's cousin. Was this a coincidence? You're an actor, an insider. I have an entertainment company under my management. Isn't it normal to know you? Hearing this, the Li family also remembered Su Yiyan's identity. They knew that she wasn't only xuanhuan's wife, but also ran an entertainment company that was part of her dowry. She had many well-known male and female artists under her management. Song Linghua and Luo Baoging had worked with her in this area, so they reconnected with her and her family Hua. If Miss Su didn't mention it, I would have forgotten. Jihong, didn't you always praise that Red Dancer was especially good? That drama was invested in by Miss Su's company, and your grandpa Luo personally directed it. After Hai Yi's Empress failed both in terms of viewership ratings and reputation, Dong Cheng's Hongling could be said to be the complete opposite. Even in the later stages of the broadcast, the ratings still did not decrease. Instead, there was a trend of increasing. One had to know that many TV series nowadays had strong starts and weekends. The first 10 or so episodes would attract the audience's attention first, but the last 10 or so episodes would start to crazily pour in. This made many viewers who only wanted to watch the characters' ending feel as if a fishbone was stuck in their throats. It was tasteless to eat, but it was a pity to abandon it. He could only vent his dissatisfaction by getting low ratings. Naturally, the ratings of the series dropped. As for Red Brave, due to its high performance throughout the entire process, there was not a single drop in the plot even in the middle and later stages of the production. It was deeply loved by the audience, and in just 1 or 2 months, it had already become the most popular drama series of the year. Unsurprisingly, Dongqing Entertainment, the biggest investor, became the biggest winner of this explosive production. With this drama alone, they earned back more than half of their investment last year. It was a solid start for Su Yiyan's IP project. Yin Jihong had indeed praised the show before and even tried his best to recommend it to his relatives and friends. Not to mention other things, many people in the Li family had been led into the pit by him. However, in the past month after he joined the cast, his family had been watching the show happily. As the person who had first recommended the show to them, he had become less and less talkative about it. No one thought much about it. They just thought that Yin Jihong was busy with filming and had no time to watch the show. Naturally, he would not discuss the plot with them. However, it seemed that this was not the case. Chapter 1045. Yin Jihong's mind went blank for a moment when he heard his aunt mention Dancing in Red. Even his expression froze for a moment. Mother Li did not think much of it when she saw him like this. She thought that he was surprised to find out that the show he liked was produced by someone he knew, so he could not react in time. On the other hand, Su Yiyan subconsciously paid more attention to him when she found out that the young man in front of her was Yin Jihong. Seeing him like this, for some reason, she suddenly remembered the words that Xia Junxing had said to her before. He had said that Yin Jihong had a strict upbringing and that he was a lofty person who abhorred evil. Because of this, he had not been friendly with Wen Jingping at first. Later, when Wen Jingping and Ding Juexi's scandal was exposed, Yin Jihong, who should have been estranged from Wen Jingping, suddenly became very close to her. He had unknowingly protected Wen Jingping as if he had been possessed. Possessed? Su Yiyan's eyes turned cold. Ever since Ding Juexi's scandal was exposed, her Goldfinger progress had been stuck at 75 and had not moved at all. Was the last 25 on the person in front of her or on Do Tianyi? Countless thoughts flashed through Su Yiyan's mind, but she did not show it on her face. She smiled and said, Mr. Yin, you've watched Dancing in Red. I heard that there was some trouble in a show that Mr. Yin has been filming recently. It's quite troublesome. Has it been resolved? When everyone heard her words, their gazes all drifted towards Yin Jihong. Jihong, something happened to your production team? Why didn't you mention it? Is it serious? Do you need help? Yin Jihong's expression was subtle. He was silent for a while before he said, It's nothing serious. It's been resolved. After he said that, he suddenly changed the topic and said, Miss Su seems to be very interested in our production team. Su Yiyan could tell that he was testing her. She smiled and said, That's not it. I'm a gossipy person and I like to watch the fun. Usually when I have nothing to do, I like to eat melons and watch dramas online. This free drama is my favorite. How can I miss it? Jianghu did not expect Su Yiyan to say that, and his body stiffened uncontrollably. The people present were all shrewd people. At this point, how could they not see the subtle atmosphere between the two? Mrs. Li and the others looked at each other. They didn't know if there was any contact or conflict between the two of them. Luo Baoging and his wife were equally puzzled. However, they were industry insiders and knew a little more than the Li family. Recalling Su Yiyan's words, Luo Baoging had a guess. Jianghu has also been busy filming recently. Which production team did he join? Luo Baoging was an elder and a senior in the circle. Naturally, Jianghu had to answer his question. He whispered the name of a drama. As soon as Luo Baoging heard the name, his eyebrows twitched. He knew that his guess was not far from the truth. So it's this drama. It did cause a lot of trouble some time ago. I didn't expect the male lead to be you. What a pity. Luo Baoging whispered in riddles. Not only did he not solve the Li family's confusion, but he also aroused their curiosity. What's wrong with this drama? Is there something wrong with the director or is there something wrong with the actors and the crew? As Mrs. Li spoke, she suddenly looked at Jianghu and asked, Jianghu, are you hiding something from us? Chapter 1046. Jianghu's brows furrowed slightly. Under the probing gazes of his relatives, he didn't know what to say. Actually, it's nothing much. There are so many people in a drama, so there's bound to be a few weirdos. It's fine as long as it's settled. Luo Baoging knew the twists and turns in this matter. He also knew that it wasn't good to discuss this topic in front of the people involved, so he ended the topic and gave Grandpa Li a look. Grandpa Li instantly understood and pulled back his wife who was about to continue asking. He smiled faintly and said, Old Luo is right. How can everything go smoothly at work? It's fine as long as it's settled. Today we're here to thank Miss Su and confirm Nan Nan's treatment with Miss Su. Business is more important. Since Grandpa Li had said so, Grandma Li naturally couldn't say anything. When Jianghu heard Luo Baoging's vague derogatory evaluation, he subconsciously wanted to refute Wen Jingping. However, when the words were about to come out of his mouth, he unexpectedly met Su Yiyan's gaze. His mind went blank again. He didn't know why, but the words that were about to come out of his mouth couldn't come out. Su Yiyan saw Jianghu's conflicted and confused expression. She only felt that it was even more out of place. She looked at Jianghu with a more probing gaze. System, is there any way to investigate the reason why Jianghu's attitude towards Wen Jingping was different? Isn't Wen Jingping's female lead halo already very weak? How can it still make these people lose their intelligence? Is there something that you and I don't know about? Does the host suspect that Wen Jingping used some unspeakable methods on Jianghu? Su Yiyan was silent for a moment, then probed, Can you find out? The host can scan the past experience and memory of a potential threat to confirm whether or not he has been corrupted by the female lead halo. Su Yiyan was shocked. The system actually had such a function. She thought that the system's skill points were all in Chinese medicine. Before she could finish being happy, she heard the system add another sentence. As long as the host pays the corresponding favorability points. She knew that this lousy system wasn't easy to talk to. How much? 1 million favorability points. Su Yiyan was stunned for a moment. He opened his mouth, but before he could react to this inexplicably huge number, he heard the system faintly spit out 2 more words. Once. When did you learn to speak so slowly? The system won't breathe, thank you. Su Yiyan. I'm actually speechless, so angry. 1 million favorable impression points each time? Are you trying to rob me? Previously, the one-time use good luck halo that she exchanged for only cost 1,000 favorability points. Although it was a little expensive to upgrade it, the seeds that she unlocked were basically worth a few thousand each. Even if it was more expensive, it wouldn't be more than a few tens of thousands. He had only scanned it once and it actually cost 1 million. Su Yiyan felt that he had the word, sucker, hanging over his head, and that he could be ripped off at any time. I suspect that you're raising the price on the spot. I want to lodge a complaint. The system has yet to activate the complaint function. The choice is in your hands. If you don't accept this price, you can also choose not to make the exchange. The hidden meaning was, take it or leave it, there's no way to lower the price. Hearing the system's stiff reply, Su Yiyan glanced at the remaining favorability points. she gritted her teeth and made the decision: exchange. Although with Su Yiyan's current situation, 1 million favorability points could actually be earned by opening another live broadcast. But when she heard the system's notification, Su Yiyan couldn't help but feel a little heartache. She felt that she had been cheated. Chapter 1047. The only thing that could comfort her was that this one-time scan function was worth the money. After deducting all the affection points, the system dutifully turned on the virtual camera and scanned Yin Jihong from top to bottom, inside and out. With this sweep he really did manage to find some things. Su Yiyan raised her eyebrows. What's wrong? What did you find? This person has traces of using a system item. System item? Su Yiyan was startled and her expression changed greatly. You mean there are traces of using a system item on his body? Someone gave it to him? Wen Jingping? If that was the case, then everything made sense. Before this, Yin Jihong's attitude towards Wen Jingping was neither hot nor cold, even somewhat repulsive. However, after her scandal, not only did Yin Jihong's impression of her not worsen, he even protected her under his wings. This kind of behavior was undoubtedly contrary to his personality. However, if he had the support of a system item, then it was understandable. Even someone as calm as Su Yiyan could not help but change her expression when she realized this. So, Wen Jingping's body is very likely to have a system similar to yours? From a certain point of view, that is correct. However, there should be some differences. Differences? How are they different? Perhaps they both need to complete missions to level up. The system in the hands of the world's female lead can directly exchange for a tool to manipulate people's hearts. This system can only provide a certain amount of technical assistance to the host. In other words, Wen Jingping's system could earn the same amount of affection points as Su Yiyan's system by completing missions. Then she could use these affection points to exchange for a tool to manipulate people's hearts. She could manipulate the target to have a favorable impression of her and use them to complete more missions in exchange for more tools. Should I say, as expected of the world's female lead? The system was also different from other people's. This thing could be a virtuous cycle. She did not need to do anything but wait for the excellent supporting male leads to automatically come to her door and beg to give her resources. Realizing this, Su Yiyan was filled with envy, jealousy, and hatred. She was even more resentful of the system's actions just now. From what you said, the system in her body seems to be even more advanced. The system was silent for a few seconds before faintly replying. System 001 is currently the most advanced system. Host, please do not attack the system personally. Otherwise, the system will take measures to defend itself and cut off part of the security system's technical support in the host's home. Su Yiyan? This is a threat. If Su Yiyan could be threatened by the system's words, then she would not be Su Yiyan. Listening to the system's exasperated rebuttal, the frustration from the massive hemorrhage had dissipated a little. Su Yiyan continued to provoke the system's rage points in a good mood. So, you're saying you're the system to Wen Jingping, to the system. That is. Since that's the case, you should be able to swallow her system, right? The system choked. It did not expect Su Yiyan to have such thoughts about the system that suddenly appeared in Wen Jingping's body. You have to see it with your own eyes to be sure. When I heard you say it in such a dignified manner, I thought it wouldn't be difficult for you. System? Don't think I can't tell that you're mocking me. Chapter 1048. The system was enraged by Su Yiyan's words and shut up on the spot. Su Yiyan knew when to stop. She quickly turned her attention back to Wen Jingping. However, this is really strange. Since Wen Jingping has such a good thing on her, how could she have played such a good set of cards to such a state today? Although Su Yiyan was partly responsible for her current predicament, she was not completely innocent. However, if one were to dig deeper, they would find that most of what Su Yiyan did was just fighting back. She had fallen into this awkward situation largely because of herself. Or is it that her item is only effective on people who have come into contact with it in real life? It has no effect on people who have not come into contact with it on the internet? Hearing Su Yiyan's words, the system tried to hold back, but in the end it could not hold back. If the world's female lead has traces of the system on her body, the system will be able to find out if she is in a photo with the host. Su Yiyan was slightly stunned. You mean when I met Wen Jingping before, you did not notice that she had another system on her body? Could it be that her system is more advanced than yours, so much so that even you could not detect it? Impossible. The system's angry rebuttal successfully amused Su Yiyan. Since that is not the reason, there is only one possibility left. Wen Jingping's system only appeared after the last time they met. Su Yiyan was not sure about the exact time, but judging from the attitude of the men around Wen Jingping, it must have happened before she met Ding Jueisi, or even before that. Miss Su? Miss Su? Su Yiyan was deep in thought because of the sudden discovery of a big secret. Her dazed expression was inevitably noticed by the Li family members who had been paying attention to her. Nothing. Su Yiyan seemed to have woken up from a dream. She did not continue to ask the system about the same system and focused on Lian Nam. Has the surgery time been set? Yes, it will be in a week. Then during this period of time, use this ointment to fade away the scars except for the face. As for the rest, we'll wait until you're done with the surgery and see how well you're recovering. Then we'll see if there's a need to adjust the dosage of the medicine. The Li family had come here today just to hear Su Yiyan's words. Now that they had heard it, their hearts were much more at ease. They had originally come to express their gratitude, but seeing that it was almost time for dinner, they didn't want to disturb them any further. In addition, many of them had their own matters to attend to, so they didn't stay in the family hall for long. Estimating that it was about time, they got up and bid farewell. Su Yiyan was busy trying to figure out what was going on with the system, so she didn't ask them to stay. Naturally, she didn't know that after they left the family hua, Luo Baoging and Song Linghua were invited into Grandpa Li and Grandma Li's car. The two juniors who had accompanied them were chased to another car. Old Luo, what did you tell Miss Su about Jihang's production team? Why did I see that you guys didn't look too good at the time? Luo Baoging glanced at his old friend. After thinking for a while, he said, actually it's not a big deal. Little Su was engaged to family Hua before she got married. You guys should have heard about this, right? I know about this. Grandma Li immediately took over the conversation. Not many people knew about the engagement between Su Yiyan and Hua Xiaofeng. However, after the engagement was called off, it caused such a huge commotion. It even involved the cliché plot of a mistress getting married. As a result, their verbal engagement became the laughingstock of many people in high society. Chapter 1049. Not only that, but Su Yiyan had married Hua Xiaofeng's uncle at lightning speed, which had shocked many onlookers. His ex-fiancée had suddenly become his aunt. Perhaps only the person involved would know how bitter it felt. Many people did not dare to talk about it openly, but behind their backs they shared it as a joke with their friends. Grandma Li had heard about it from an old friend of hers. Mother Li also knew about it. When she heard Luo Baoging suddenly mention it, her heart could not help but skip a beat. Uncle Luo, why did you suddenly mention this? Could it be that the incident with Jihang's production team has something to do with this? As soon as she said this, the few people in the car all focused their attention on Luo Baoging. There is indeed something to do with it. There is an actress in his drama, the one that her fiancé found, mistress? Yes. The Li family's faces changed slightly. How could it be so coincidental? Isn't it just so coincidental? Moreover, after that girl joined the production team, she caused some trouble. What happened? She got involved with a married male actor in the production team. The Li family's members looked at each other and frowned at the same time. If the Li family wanted to know about this, they would naturally investigate it. Luo Baoging did not dwell on this topic. As a friend, he kindly reminded them. This girl seems to especially like to pester rich and powerful men who can help her work. Previously, we did not know that Jihang was in the same production team as her. Now that we know, you should take care of the child. Don't let the child take the wrong path and be deceived. Luo Baoging's words were very straightforward. He was a master who liked to hook up with potential stocks everywhere. He did not need to say how outstanding the Li family was. Perhaps they had already been targeted. The elders of the Li family were all shrewd people. This was not the first time something like this had happened. With Yin Jihang's background, he had the looks, the connections, and the family background. Not to mention in the entertainment industry, even in those rich and powerful circles, he would be in high demand. Since his debut, there had been a lot of girls who had designs on him. It was just that these people simply couldn't enter his eyes. The Li family believed in their junior's self-control and didn't think that Yin Jihang would be bewitched by such a girl. But now the person who reminded them was Luo Baoging, and this matter involved Su Yiyan, who was helping Lian Nam with his treatment. They had no choice but to take it seriously. It was actually very easy to find out about Yin Jihang's situation on set. Yin Jihang had an assistant who followed him around 24/7. There was probably no one who knew more about Yin Jihang's situation than him. However, before contacting the assistant, the Li family and the Yin family, who had received the news indirectly, contacted Yin Jihang's manager first. Coincidentally, Yin Jihang's manager had been busy with another artist under his management. He knew that no one in the industry dared to provoke Yin Jihang. He wasn't someone who liked to cause trouble, so he didn't ask much after he sent Yin Jihong to the set. He had always been very confident in Yin Jihong. Not long ago, Yin Jihong's assistant felt that Yin Jihong's condition was not right. Only then did he muster up the courage to contact Yin Jihong's manager and explain Yin Jihong's strange behavior during this period of time. Chapter 1050. Yin Jihong's manager didn't think much of it at first, until he heard the second half. After the scandal between Wen Jingping and Ding Juesi, not only did Yin Jihong get closer to her, he even planned to act as a middleman to help Wen Jingping connect with other big shots. The reason why the Yin family chose this manager was that he was quick-witted and quick-witted. He knew how to judge the situation. Hearing his assistant say this, he broke out in cold sweat. Not to mention whether Yin Jihong was really possessed or not, this matter was definitely related to him. The Yin family's upbringing was famous for being strict. The children they raised were all upright and couldn't tolerate anything. Yin Jihong wasn't possessed, but he suddenly had feelings for a spoiled girl. As his manager, he didn't realize it after so long. It was a dereliction of duty. Yin Jihong was possessed and was charmed by such a girl. As his manager, he was kept in the dark and couldn't guard against it. It was also a dereliction of duty. Just as the manager was having a headache and didn't know how to deal with this matter, the Yin family called before he could think of a solution. Mr. Yin? The manager picked up the phone guiltily. He didn't have much confidence. The Yin family didn't waste time with him and directly stated their purpose. The manager's heart trembled and he almost threw his phone away in shock. After spending a few seconds to figure out that this matter couldn't be hidden anymore, the manager gritted his teeth and told the Yin family all the things that his assistant reported. When the Yin family heard that their youngest son was not only close to a spoiled vixen, but he was also infatuated with this vixen and wanted to use their family's connections to help her get connections and find resources, it was incredible. Yin Jihong's father, the current head of the Yin family, Yin Huifeng, first scolded Yin Jihong's manager. Then he carefully asked about Wen Jingping's situation on the set. He found out that this woman was just a female lead and that the scenes related to her had long been finished. Logically speaking, she should have been kicked out of the set a long time ago after causing such a scandal with the male actor in the same set. However, the truth was that Wen Jingping had shamelessly stayed behind in the name of an exchange study. Moreover, Yin Jihong had helped her with this. When Father Yin heard about this, he was so angry that he almost fainted on the spot. As soon as he hung up the phone, he rushed to Yin Jihong's workplace and took his stupid son away. It was rare for him to severely reprimand him. He also ordered Yin Jihong to immediately break off his relationship with Wen Jingping and never meet this woman again. This was the first time Yin Jihong's father had scolded his child, and it was also the first time Yin Jihong had been scolded. Mr. Yin originally thought that his scolding would wake his son up, but he didn't expect his son, who had always been well-behaved and obedient, to talk back to him after hearing a few words. He even had a big fight with him. When Su Yiyin found out about this, Yin Jihong had already been locked up by the Yin family. It was said that because of him, the Yin family had secretly found a few masters to exorcise him. They felt that his soul had been seduced by a vixen and he had been possessed. After Su Yiyin asked someone to inquire about the whole story, he was both embarrassed and puzzled. Was Yin Jihong so wild at home? When they met previously, Su Yiyin could feel the other party's coldness towards him, as well as his occasional absent-mindedness. However, there wasn't much of a conflict in the end. He originally thought that he would be a calm and patient guy, but he didn't expect, as if reading Su Yiyin's mind, the system took the initiative to go online and clear up Su Yiyin's worries and doubts. Yin Jihong didn't have a conflict with the host previously because the host was there. Chapter 1051. Su Yiyin was stunned for a few seconds before she realized what it meant. She frowned and said, "Are you saying that he's calmer because I'm around and didn't get into a conflict with anyone?" "You can say that." "No, what does this have to do with me?" Could it be that she was a tool to keep Yin Jihong awake? Yin Jihong's abnormality originated from the world's female lead. The host has stolen the halo of the world's female lead. Yin Jihong's influence will be suppressed in front of the host, and he will gain temporary lucidity. I see. No wonder Yin Jihong's behavior was so strange that day. She could faintly feel his hostility towards her, but he seemed to be very restrained. He would also be in a trance from time to time. In addition, the skill item used by the world's female lead is not of a high level. She needs to be in contact with the target for a long time and strengthen it again and again to make him have a better impression of her. Su Yiyin narrowed her eyes and immediately grasped the main point of the system's words. In other words, the effect of her item is not permanent, and it's not even long-term. As long as Yin Jihong is not in contact with her for a short period of time, he will return to normal and no longer be affected by the item? Logically speaking, that's the case. That's interesting. Su Yiyan's lips curled up slightly, and a trace of interest flashed through her eyes. Xia Junxing had mentioned to her before that Yin Jihong's initial attitude towards Wen Jingping was not good, and Wen Jingping had created such a big scandal with the male actor in the crew during filming. If it was Yin Jihong's original temperament, he should have hated her. He should have avoided her like the plague and despised her even if he looked at her more than once. However, under inexplicable circumstances he actually had a good impression of her, and even did a lot of stupid things for her that were enough to make him ashamed to death. When Yin Jihong completely sobered up and recalled these things, she wondered if he would be angry and take his anger out on Wen Jingping, the main culprit. If that was the case, there would be a good show to watch. As Su Yiyan expected, Yin Jihong was quite unconvinced when he was first locked up. Mrs. Yin knew about what had happened to Wen Jingping. Although she didn't agree with what her son had done, her heart softened when she saw that the father and son had quarreled so fiercely. She took the initiative to go to her son's room. She wanted to be the peacemaker and persuade her son to mend his ways and stop being angry with his father. In the end, it would have been better if Wen Jingping had not been mentioned. The moment she did, Yin Jihong instantly lost control of his emotions. After having a conflict with his father, he had a conflict with his mother. Father Yin was already angry because of his son's late rebellion. When he found out that his son had actually yelled at his wife, he was even angrier. If it weren't for Mama Yin stopping her, she would have rolled up her sleeves and engaged in domestic violence. Because of this small episode, Yin Jihong's imprisonment was naturally extended indefinitely. However, he didn't sit still and wait for his death. Ever since the day he had a conflict with his parents, he had been on a hunger strike. When Papa Yin found out about this, he got even angrier. He hadn't even done anything to him yet, but he was already on a hunger strike. Did this little brat feel wronged? If you want to go on a hunger strike, then so be it. Let's see who can outlast the other. It had to be said that the temperaments of the father and son were very similar. They were equally stubborn, and neither was willing to give in first. Only Mama Yin suffered. On one hand, she felt sorry for her son, but on the other hand, she knew that her husband wasn't wrong. She was in a dilemma and secretly cried countless times. Fortunately, this situation didn't last too long. On the third day after being locked up, Yin Jihong suddenly seemed to have been enlightened and stopped his hunger strike. Chapter 1052. Mrs. Yin was overjoyed. She thought that her son had thought things through and was no longer going against his father. However, she realized that although her son had eaten, he was in a trance and didn't respond to any of her questions. It was as if he had lost his mind. Yin Jihong's stupor frightened the Yin family. They invited one doctor after another. After the examination, they all said that everything was normal. He was healthy and eating well. However, Yin Jihong's state was obviously not right. Just as the Yin family was considering whether to invite the doctor who had recently treated their in-law's niece and was said to be very good, Yin Jihong suddenly woke up. "Dad, Mom, what's wrong with me?" Yin Jihong, who hadn't seen Wen Jingping for nearly half a month or had any physical contact with her, only felt that his mind was in a mess. He seemed to have forgotten something, but also seemed to have forgotten nothing. He was in a daze and couldn't tell what was real and what was not. "You don't remember?" Mrs. Yin rushed to her son's bedside as soon as she heard the noise. Hearing this, she subconsciously turned to look at her husband with confusion in her eyes. "Remember what?" Yin Jihong held his head and looked around. For a moment he still didn't understand the situation. Mrs. Yin was afraid that she would agitate him, so she asked tentatively, "Did you forget what happened recently? Did you forget why you were at home?" "At home?" These two short words seemed to have turned on a certain switch. Everything that had happened recently was stuffed into Yin Jihong's mind. Yin Jihong's expression changed from the initial confusion and discomfort to gloomy and livid. Mrs. Yin's heart skipped a beat when she saw the sudden change in her son's expression. "Jihong, are you okay?" "Mom, I'm fine." Yin Jihong thought of what he had done recently and felt a little more apologetic toward his parents. "I just suddenly woke up and remembered what happened recently. It's as if I've been possessed." "Possessed?" The couple was shocked. "Yes. I really don't like Wen Jingping at all. You could even say that I hate her. Especially after she had such a scandal with a married woman in the crew." The statement released by Hi-E Entertainment couldn't even fool those die-hard fans, let alone those in the industry. Everyone knew what was going on in their hearts. However, they were still in the same production team, so it was not good to talk about others behind their backs. Thus, they maintained a harmonious appearance. However, under this harmonious atmosphere, How many people really looked up to these two people? Jianghu was a person who could not tolerate sand in his eyes. He vaguely remembered that when he first heard about this matter, he was quite sympathetic to Ding Juexi's first wife. He was extremely disgusted by this cheating scumbag and his mistress. Who would have thought that after only a few days, he would inexplicably have a good impression of Wen Jingping as if he was possessed? His reason clearly told him to stay away from this woman, but there was a voice that kept echoing in his mind, asking him to help her, pamper her, and love her. Now that he thought about it, Jianghu felt his hair stand on end. It was as if his body had suddenly been controlled by someone else. It was simply terrifying. Mrs. Yin firmly believed her son's words. She boasted that she knew her son's temperament very well. Previously, she was busy dealing with the conflict between father and son, so she didn't think too much about it. Now that her son mentioned it, she couldn't help but think about it. Could it be that you bumped into something unclean? Or did that woman feed you something strange? Chapter 1053. If Jianghu knew what was going on, he wouldn't be so depressed. I'm not sure either. I clearly hated her back then and was very careful to keep a distance from her. But she would always take the initiative to come to me from time to time. Sometimes she would even touch me intentionally or unintentionally. Mrs. Yin's face darkened when she heard this. She took the initiative to approach him and even touched him physically. This woman's thoughts were as clear as day. What a shameless vixen. Later, after some contact, it seemed like Jianghu's face was livid and he couldn't continue. Whenever he thought of the intimate contact he had with Wen Jingping during this period of time, he couldn't help but feel nauseous. All right. If you don't want to talk about it, then don't. Mom knows. It must be that woman's doing. Don't worry. Mom will avenge you. I won't let that woman have an easy time. Compared to Mrs. Yin's heartache, Mr. Yin was more rational. He looked at his son suspiciously and doubted his words. You've really thought it through and come to your senses? You didn't lie to us on purpose so that I'll let you go and run to that woman? The corner of Jianghu's mouth twitched. He realized for the first time that his father had such a rich imagination. Dad, don't worry. There's nothing wrong with your son's eyes. Why would he fall for a woman who seduces men everywhere? Is he worried that he's not cuckolded enough? Mr. Yin snorted and mocked him mercilessly. That's not what you said 2 days ago. I already said that it wasn't me. Mr. Yin snorted. He was still a little upset about his son's actions during this period of time. But since his son had already said this, it was obvious that he had indeed thought it through. Thinking of what he had just said, his eyes narrowed dangerously. He had more or less done some business in the past few years. As a businessman, even if they weren't superstitious, they mostly believed in the word luck. Previously, he had been blinded by his son's belated rebellion. Now that he thought about it carefully, he also felt that this strange woman who had appeared out of nowhere was a little strange. Immediately, his face darkened and he said, "Since you've thought it through, you'd better behave during this period of time. Don't contact this woman again." This time he was so infatuated that he even dared to talk back to me and your mother. Next time he might even hit me and your mother. Tomorrow I'll find a master to see if this woman is a human or a ghost. If she's a human, we'll catch her. If she's a ghost, we'll catch her. We can't just let this go. Jianghu opened his mouth, but he knew that his father's concern was not wrong. If Wen Jingping really used some underhanded means, who knew if there would be any repercussions if he fell for it so secretly? It was best to leave this matter to his father, but, Dad, you be careful too. If you don't teach him a lesson, you might end up falling into his trap as well. That would be a big loss. You little brat, do you think your father is like you? You're so young that you can't find your bearings after being coaxed by others? Don't worry, I know what to do. Jianghu's face darkened. He wanted to refute with a few words to prove himself, but when he thought of all the ridiculous things that had happened during this period of time, he suddenly lost his confidence. His disgust and dissatisfaction with Wen Jingping also reached its peak at this moment. The more he doted on this woman and listened to her words in the past, the more he disliked and rejected her now. Chapter 1054. It was impossible for them to meet again, but he couldn't take this lying down, unless someone's reputation was ruined. What everyone didn't know was that the moment Jianghu woke up, the culprit, Wen Jingping, also felt a chill down her spine. The uneasiness in her heart reached its peak. As the male lead, Jianghu couldn't leave the set for too long during filming. However, this drama had been filming for a long time. When Jianghu was brought home by his father, he didn't have many scenes left. In addition, the Li family was one of the investors of this drama, and the Yin and Li families were close. Even the director couldn't stop the elders from teaching their children a lesson. Thus, they put Yin Jihong's remaining scenes at the end and filmed the others first. There were always more solutions than problems. Although Yin Jihong's departure disrupted the original filming plan, it didn't affect it much. After some adjustments, the original order was quickly restored. The only one who panicked was Wen Jingping. When Yin Jihong first asked for leave, she didn't realize the severity of the situation. She only thought that he had something to do at home and would be back in 2 days. In the end, Yin Jihong didn't come back in 2 days. Instead, she was asked to leave by the assistant director of the production team. Of course, it was Father Yin who asked the director to leave. Yin Jihong was fine. It was normal for male leads to hang around the set every day. This woman was just a guest actress in the drama. Her scenes were completed in less than half a month, yet she refused to leave. It was obvious that she had ulterior motives. Wen Jingping was in disbelief when she was chased away. She hinted to the assistant director that she was Yin Jihong's woman. If the production team chased her away while Yin Jihong was away, it would be hard to explain when Yin Jihong came back. The assistant director couldn't help but laugh. I know Miss Wen is young Master Yin's woman, but the person who asked you to leave the set is President Yin. We're in a difficult position. Miss Wen is a smart person. You should understand our difficulties. Don't make it difficult for us. Wen Jingping froze and her expression changed. President Yin? Which President Yin? How many other President Yins can there be? Of course, it's young Master Yin's father. Wen Jingping's heart skipped a beat. She finally sensed a trace of danger. Why would President Yin? Why would he contact us over such a small matter and interfere with our small production team's matters? The assistant director looked at Wen Jingping with a smile, but there was a trace of contempt and disdain in his eyes. You'll have to ask Miss Wen herself. You're asking me? Wen Jingping's expression froze slightly, and she subconsciously avoided his gaze. How would I know? Miss Su, do you know why young Master Yin's not coming to the set these few days? Why? Young Master Yin's hands, young master's mother's young master's father's young Master Yin's? Now it's President Yin who's asking you to leave through us. If you leave obediently, you can still save yourself some face. Otherwise, when President Yin does it himself, you'll be the one at a disadvantage. The assistant director's meaning was clear. You're indeed Yin Jihong's woman, but no matter how powerful Yin Jihong is, he's still President Yin's son. The person who wanted to chase her away was President Yin. Yin Jihong couldn't even protect himself. How could he protect a small shrimp like her? The production team was still asking her to leave. If she didn't know what was good for her, she would be chased out tomorrow. Chapter 1055. Wen Jingping's face turned green and white. In the end, she didn't dare to go against these people. She pursed her lips and nodded unwillingly. Since she had already left the production team, Wen Jingping naturally couldn't continue to stay in the hotel provided by the production team. The accommodation that Do Qianni had provided for her had been rejected by Li Yu after she hooked up with Ding Juesi and entered the current production team. She definitely couldn't go back. Helpless, Wen Jingping could only rent a shabby single room outside with her remaining savings. Just as she settled down in this shabby little house that was unpleasant to the eye, Wen Jingping received another call. Not long ago she had asked Yin Jihong to help her with a small endorsement deal, but it was gone. After that, a TV series where she had relied on Yin Jihong's relationship to get the role of the 6th female lead also called her. They politely told her that they had found a more suitable actress and regretted that they couldn't work with her. Of course, this was just an excuse. When Jingping finally understood the meaning of the assistant director's words. Yin Jihong had been caught by his father and couldn't even protect himself. After his father dealt with him, the next person to be dealt with would be her. What she had to face now was not only that her career, which had finally improved by relying on Yin Jihong, would once again enter a cold winter. It was also very likely that she would be blacklisted by the Yin family and face further suppression. Thinking of this, Wen Jingping's hands couldn't help trembling. She was afraid and angry. She wanted to smash things to vent her anger, but she also knew that if she smashed things she would really have to live on the streets. In extreme anger, she decisively vented her anger on the system. Didn't you say that Yin Jihong was very favored at home and that as long as I got rid of him, it would be equivalent to getting rid of the Yin family? What's going on now? He's been locked up. Although the system was also very surprised that things would take such a sudden turn and suddenly go out of control, it still did its job to answer Wen Jingping's doubts. After testing, after the scandal between the host and Ding Juesi was exposed, the public's favorability decreased by 20%. Before this, Wen Jingping had a certain fan base. Most of these fans came from her previous live broadcast audience on Konami. It was a pity that a portion of the audience had already been washed away by the demon empress that she had participated in before. After that, her entertainment debut suffered a setback and she was unable to successfully form a group. Onlookers kicked her when she was down. They quickly terminated her contract on the grounds that her actions had a bad impact and brought a negative image to the platform. Not only did they not pay her a single cent for the breach of contract, but they also made her pay a sum of money. They squeezed out most of the money that she had painstakingly saved during this period of time. Without the support of the platform, Wen Jingping naturally couldn't do live broadcasts to attract fans like before. In addition, in the past 1 or 2 years, whenever she had the slightest inclination to clear her name, she would expose a bigger scandal. No matter how loyal her fans were, there wouldn't be many of them left after what she had done. Especially with the recent scandals about Wen Jingping's rumored partner being a married man, one could imagine the impact it had on her fans. The expression on Wen Jingping's face stiffened. It was rare for her to be smart enough to understand the meaning of the system's words. What do you mean? Are you blaming me for having a bad reputation and dragging Yin Jihong down? The system pretended to be dead and didn't respond, but the little program that was flying around in her mind was silently complaining, so you still have some self-awareness and know that you're dragging him down. I thought you were so stupid that you couldn't even see that. Chapter 1056. Of course, the system couldn't say this out loud, otherwise Wen Jingping would go even crazier. What do I do now? Yin Jihong has been locked up by his father, how am I supposed to see him? 4 rich people like them, the security in their homes must be very tight, how am I supposed to break in? Yin Jihong's favorability towards me was so high before, he would definitely think of a way to find me, right? Once he's here, he'll definitely have a way to help me. Wen Jingping anxiously walked around in circles in the room. In the end, her eyes couldn't help but reveal a trace of hope, hoping that Yin Jihong would be able to save her from this predicament. Hearing her say this, the system was silent for a moment, but still had to remind her. Host, please don't take things for granted. The supporting male lead Yin Jihong's favorability towards the host is mostly influenced by items. In view of the fact that the supporting male lead Yin Jihong originally didn't have a good impression of the host, in the next 2 weeks, the host must come into contact with the target and use items to strengthen the favorability. Otherwise, the effects of the items used by the host will be ineffective. Ineffective? The smile on Wen Jingping's face completely froze, so much so that it looked a bit sinister. How can it be ineffective? How can the items provided by the system be ineffective just like that? Are you playing with me? The system was very annoyed by her bombardment of questions that couldn't distinguish right from wrong. The items exchanged by the host were originally the lowest level of favorability items, so they have a certain time limit. Moreover, the target's impression of the host before using the items is already bad, so it imperceptibly affects the effectiveness of the items. If the host can maintain constant physical contact with the target for a long period of time, and repeatedly use items on him, causing the target's favorability towards the host to steadily increase until it reaches a critical point, then naturally it can ensure that the target is completely captured by the host. But the key point now is that the items used by the host on the target are intermittent and not enough, and now there's no way to maintain daily physical contact with him. In the long run, the effects of the items used before will gradually become ineffective. I don't care. Wen Jingping was no longer in the mood to listen to the system's lengthy analysis and explanation. You didn't tell me all this back then. I spent so much effort and spent all the favorable impression points I had painstakingly accumulated on Yin Jihong. Now you're telling me that just because he's locked up and can't have physical contact with me, there's no way for me to continue using the items on him. Everything I've done so far has been for naught. Are you toying with me? What kind of rubbish system is this? I'm going to lodge a complaint against you. Oh. The system was very cold and its patience with Wen Jingping was wearing thin bit by bit. After replying indifferently, it fell silent and pretended to be dead. No matter how much Wen Jingping screamed, it did not make a sound. Wen Jingping threw a tantrum. When she realized that no one was paying attention to her, she collapsed to the ground. She couldn't understand why she had become like this. There were so many opportunities and so many helpers that she could easily take the shortcut and become a top person. However, every time she reached a critical moment, there would always be all kinds of problems that would push her back to the bottom of the valley. What exactly had gone wrong? Why was it like this? While Wen Jingping was puzzled, on the other hand, Su Yiyan finally heard the system notification that she wanted to hear the most. Congratulations to the host for snatching the female protagonist's golden finger plus 10 progress. Current progress is 85%. Please continue to work hard. Victory is in sight. Chapter 1057. Su Yiyan's hand movements suddenly paused, and a light flashed through his eyes. Finally. Su Yiyan's lips curled up. But what happened? The progress bar increased so much all of a sudden. Based on the time limit of the item, the remnant of the item that the female lead used on Yin Jihong should have lost its effect. Su Yiyan suddenly realized. In other words, Yin Jihong is completely awake now? A person who was forced to be stupid for such a long time suddenly wasn't stupid anymore. Thinking back on the stupid things he did during this period of time, it was obvious that he wished he could wash away all these stains before he transmigrated back. When Jinping staked everything on one throw and bet all her chips on Yin Jihong because she had her eyes on Yin Jihong's connections and background, which could help her quickly gain a foothold in the entertainment industry. Now that Yin Jihong was awake, everything she relied on in the past turned into a sharp weapon to hurt others. The wider the Yin family's connections were, the greater the degree of suppression when Jinping faced. As expected, people shouldn't be too greedy. Putting in so much effort to covet something that didn't belong to you would only suffer the consequences of your own actions in the end. Su Yiyan secretly sighed at when Jinping's ability to seek death, and then focused his attention on the progress bar. As the original child of the world in this world, when Jinping's halo as the female lead had mostly dissipated, one of the male leads that she had personally chosen had turned against her. She did not know where he had run off to, and the other did not even look at her. The supporting male leads that were supposed to be her loyal supporters and stepping stones were either instigated by Su Yiyan, or they didn't even have the chance to see her before they were cut off first. The remaining 15 points were because when Jinping still had the ability to find other spare tires, or, the key was on Do Tianyi? Thinking about how his progress bar overlapped with that of xuanhuan's male lead, Su Yiyan felt that the latter was more likely. So, if he wanted to eliminate the source of trouble and completely control his fate in his own hands, he still had to go against the bug known as Do Tianyi? Speaking of which, I haven't heard anything about Do Tianyi for a long time. She had thought that such a vengeful and ruthless character would definitely use force if soft tactics didn't work. For this reason, she had been very worried and anxious for a period of time, but in the end, it was so calm and peaceful? Was it because he had thought things through and knew that he couldn't force others to do things they didn't want to do? Or was the stability at this moment just the calm before the storm? Su Yiyan did not know that it was not that Do Tianyi did not want to use force, but that his current physical condition did not allow him to fight head-on with xuanhuan and the others. Boss. Liu looked worriedly at her boss who was lying on the hospital bed with various tubes attached to his body. Do Tianyi opened his eyes and glanced at him. Don't look so dejected. I'm not dead yet. How are those fleas in the company doing recently? President Qi and Department Head Jiang have been close recently. Vice President Fang seems to be trying to find a way to contact. Liu paused and carefully glanced at him. Vice President Do. Do Tianyi instantly understood what he meant and sneered. I'm not dead yet and they can't wait. Well, while I still have energy, I'll cut off these people's outstretched hands first and let those people who are always looking forward to my death see their future in advance. Chapter 1058. The deputy director Do that Liu mentioned was Do Tianyi's aunt. Back then, the Do family was in turmoil and those who were waiting for an opportunity to fight for the family property were either dead or disabled. As a married daughter, Do Tianyi's aunt was lucky not to be implicated. To this day she still received shares and dividends from the Do family company. She was the only remaining director of the company with the surname Do other than Do Tianyi. Because of this, there were people who secretly contacted Aunt Do from time to time in the past few years. Their motives were self-evident. Do Tianyi's eyes turned cold as he sneered. I'm not dead yet and they can't wait? Well, since I still have the energy, I'll cut off these people's outstretched hands first. I'll let those people who are always waiting for me to die see what happens to them. When Liu heard him say this, she suddenly thought of something and shivered. She lowered her head and was silent for a moment before she said something else. Boss, it seems that someone is suspecting us about the Cheng family. Do you think? Do Tianyi frowned and was a little surprised. Who is it? The other party's whereabouts are very secretive and cautious. They didn't leave any big traces, so we haven't found them yet. Do you think it could be Miss Su's people? Do Tianyi narrowed his eyes and didn't say anything. Just then Liu's phone suddenly rang. In the empty ward, the shrill ringtone was particularly abrupt. Liu subconsciously glanced at Do Tianyi and said carefully, I'll take this call. Do Tianyi nodded and closed his eyes again. Liu breathed a sigh of relief and hurriedly picked up the phone. At the same time, she turned to leave the ward so as not to disturb Do Tianyi. However, just as she grabbed the door handle of the ward, the news from the other end of the phone made her expression change. How did this happen? Li Yu's exclamation successfully made Do Channy open his eyes again. What happened? Li Yu's expression was very ugly. Just now, someone from the company called and said that the relevant departments suddenly sent people to the company for an inspection and took away a group of people and the department's information. Not long after that, several directors of the company got into trouble one after another. Now our company's stock price. It would be fine if it was just some kickbacks, but the directors that Li Yu mentioned were also involved in a murder case. One was to allow his juniors to embezzle the hard-earned money of the people under him. When people came to cause trouble, he secretly bribed people to kill the leaders and make it an accident. Then he casually found another crime and blackmailed the victims' families. This caused several poor families who were already having a hard time to be ruined. There was also one who was more crazy in private. He especially liked to find those little girls who didn't know the ways of the world and let those pimps cheat many little girls for him to play with. Later on, when the girl's family came to make trouble, this person even beat the girl's parents to death and destroyed the evidence. No matter what it was, as long as it involved human lives, it couldn't be settled easily. Originally, because the people in the company were taken away for investigation, the company's image had already been seriously affected. At this sensitive time, these crazy past events suddenly broke out, and the company's stock price suddenly couldn't hold up. In addition, Do Channy was still in the hospital and couldn't get out. The whole Do enterprise could be said to be leaderless and fell into chaos all of a sudden. As soon as Do Channy heard the ins and outs of these things from Li Yu, he knew that there must be someone behind this matter. Otherwise, everything couldn't be so coincidental. Chapter 1059. However, Do Channy was still unable to determine who the person behind this was. Just as he was about to ask Li Yu to investigate the matter, his phone rang again. Li Yu thought that something had happened at the company again, so she didn't ask Do Channy for instructions and picked up the phone first. Who would have thought that this call was not from the company at all, but, "Are you looking for the boss? May I ask who you are?" Li Yu's expression froze as he looked at Do Channy with fear. Do Channy noticed the change in his expression and asked coldly, "Who is calling?" "It's President Hua from the Hua Group." The Hua Group? Do Channy was stunned, but he quickly realized who Li Yu was talking about. His eyes turned cold as he reached out his hand and said, "Give me the phone." Li Yu felt as if he had been granted amnesty. He hurriedly handed over the phone as if he was holding a hot potato. "Xuanhuan?" When Xuanhuan heard Do Channy's voice, she did not beat around the bush and went straight to the point. "President Do, you must have received my gift. Are you satisfied?" Do Channy's face darkened. "It's me." Xuanhuan admitted it without hesitation, but there was a hint of coldness in her voice. "President Do, you gave my wife's family such a big gift. How could we not return the favor? So it's you." It was unexpected but reasonable. Do Channy was not surprised, but he did not expect to meet Xuanhuan so soon. "Of course it's me. President Do, you might not know that I am a petty person. I don't like people touching my things, especially my people. I can't even stand to look at them, let alone kidnap or threaten them." "Oh." Do Channy raised his eyebrows and chuckled. "If someone did that, what would you do, President Hua? If you stretch your head too far, you'll be beaten. If you stretch your hand too far, you'll be chopped off. Since some people don't want it, I don't mind doing it for them." Do Channy sneered and said, "I'm afraid Mr. Hua doesn't have that ability. Whether one is capable or not is not just a matter of words. What happened today is just the beginning. I hope you can live until the end and see if I have the ability to cut off some people's extra hands." Xuanhuan's words accurately pierced Do Channy's heart. He had racked his brains and done so many things just so that he could live well. After saying this, Xuanhuan didn't care about Do Channy's reaction and directly hung up the phone. It was as if he had called to give Do Channy a heads up. He wanted him to know that his revenge had begun, but there was nothing he could do but watch the building collapse. Do Channy obviously knew what Xuanhuan was thinking. His face was so gloomy that it could drip water. Li Yu, who was watching from the side, was frightened. At the same time, he secretly admired President Hua from the bottom of his heart. He hadn't seen anyone who dared to provoke his boss so blatantly for a long time. Xuanhuan was not afraid at all. Or rather, he had the confidence to confront the other party. As he said, the Do Group's scandals one after another and the collapse of the stock was just an appetizer. He knew very well where Do Channy's bottom line was and how to destroy a person's bottom line. After dealing with Do Channy's matter, Xuanhuan returned home. Su Yiyan had just bathed the little guy and was busy applying moisturizer and talcum powder for him. Chapter 1060. After soaking in the water, the little guy was lying on the soft, snow-white bath towel, happily kicking his chubby little legs. Su Yiyan took out the baby cream and spread it evenly on her hands. Then, she mischievously treated the little guy's chubby little face as a small dough and spread it down from top to bottom. Then she patted his chubby little face, making his chubby little face tremble. It was so cute. Su Yiyan didn't use much strength to wipe his face. Perhaps the little guy knew that she was playing with him, so he didn't cry. Instead, he smiled foolishly. When xuanhuan entered the door, she saw this scene. Her frown instantly eased and she walked over. Su Yiyan heard footsteps and turned to look. When she saw xuanhuan, her eyes lit up. "You're back." Xuanhuan saw that the two of them were having fun. After walking to Su Yiyan's side, she pinched her son's chubby little face and squeezed it like a toy. Xuanhuan didn't use much strength to pinch his face, but she couldn't stop him from pinching it back and forth. At first, the little guy was a little confused. After being pinched a few times, he finally reacted. His little mouth flattened and he howled. Su Yiyan saw this and squeezed xuanhuan away. She picked up the child and coaxed, "Good boy, don't cry. Daddy is playing with you." Bad, bad. The little guy had been able to make some simple syllables recently. As soon as he was held in his mother's arms, he grabbed Su Yiyan's lapel pitifully and complained about his father. Yes, Daddy is bad. Let's not play with him." Su Yiyan comforted her crying son and rolled her eyes at a certain childish person. "Why did you provoke him again? Don't I have to coax him when he cries?" Being glared at by her, xuanhuan felt guilty and wronged. "I saw that you guys were having fun, so I wanted to tease him. Who knew that he couldn't take it?" When xuanhuan said this, he glanced at his son. He felt that this little brat was deliberately making things difficult for him. When he was playing with his mother, he was very cooperative, but when it came to him, he cried. The difference in treatment was too obvious. When Su Yiyan heard what he said, she couldn't help but roll her eyes at him again. She thought to herself, "I'm playing with a child and you're playing with a child. How can it be the same?" Fortunately, a child's temper came and went quickly. It didn't take long for them to forget about this little episode and play happily with Dun Dun and the others. After Su Yiyan comforted the little baby, she did not forget about her big baby. After handing the little baby to the nanny and Xuanhuan, she turned around and hugged xuanhuan's neck. "You seem to be going out a lot recently. Is there something wrong?" Xuanhuan held Su Yiyan's waist so that she could hang on to him better. "There is something, but it has been solved." "That's good." Su Yiyan could see that xuanhuan did not want to say more, so she did not ask more and changed the topic. "Is there any news from Uncle?" Although Zheng Qianyang had moved out, he would come to see the little boy from time to time. However, because of Huoqihan's matter, he seemed to have been busy recently and had not come for a few days. At the mention of this matter, Huoqianhuan's eyes flashed slightly. There is already some progress. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, Uncle may be busy recently, so he has to leave for a while. Su Yiyan nodded in understanding. Zheng Qianyang had been looking for this group of people for so many years. During this period, it was not that he did not have any clues, but there was no way to catch them. This showed how cunning this group of people was. It was always right to be cautious. Chapter 1061. Tell him to be careful and come back early. Okay. Huoqianhuan was no less worried about Zheng Qianyang than Su Yiyan, but he also knew that there were always some things in this world that were important enough to make people disregard life and death. Even if they knew that there would be danger, they would still do it without hesitation. "By the way, your friend?" "Friend?" Su Yiyan was stunned for a while before she realized who Huoqianhuan was talking about. She asked in confusion, "You're talking about Xiaoqi. What's wrong with her?" "Her boyfriend seems to have made a lot of moves recently." Su Yiyan's eyes lit up slightly. She suddenly remembered that Ling Xiaoqi had mentioned to her before that Ning Xiyuan had the intention to make a move on her scumbag father. What did he do? He got someone to attack his future father-in-law's company across the province, causing internal strife in the company. The stock price fell greatly and it was like a plate of loose sand. In addition, he also got someone to fish in troubled waters and sow discord between the internal staff of the company and his father-in-law's wife. The husband and wife fought, and it was even filmed and posted on the internet, causing a heated discussion. If nothing goes wrong, he should be able to buy all the scattered shares that were sold out in a few days and become a major shareholder of that company. Although Su Yiyan was mentally prepared, she was still a little surprised. She was surprised that Ning Xiyuan's actions were so fast. He did it as he said and didn't give the other party any chance to react at all. Moreover, Su Yiyan's impression of Ning Xiyuan had always been that he was gentle, polite, gentle, and humble. She had completely forgotten that this person, as the heir of the Ning and Qi families, was simply a wolf in sheep's clothing. Xiaoqi mentioned this to me before. During the period when we went to Grandpa's place, her biological father secretly wanted to cause trouble again, but Ning Xiyuan found out. Do you still remember that time when that man came to look for Xiaoqi and wanted to kidnap her against her will? At that time, it was Ning Xiyuan who saved her. I remember. You even complained to me before that someone's motive for saving the damsel in distress was impure. I still feel that his motive for saving the damsel in distress was impure. However, as long as he is sincerely good to Xiaoqi, it doesn't matter whether his motive is pure or not. When Su Yiyan said this, she let out a long sigh of relief. Back then, the two of them weren't related, but Ning Xiyuan was willing to stand up for Xiaoqi. Now that the two of them are together and know about Xiaoqi's family's troubles, it's even more impossible for him to remain indifferent. Xiaoqi said that he was going to swallow that man's company and give it to her as a betrothal gift, as a proposal gift. Xiaoqi wasn't sure if she should accept it, but I felt that she should accept it and had to accept it. That man had caused her and her mother to suffer so much. She deserved these things. Moreover, this is also Ning Xiyuan's feelings for her. For him to be able to do this for her, it shows that he really cares about Xiaoqi. If it were me and someone was willing to do so much for me, I wouldn't be able to remain indifferent, right? The more Xuanhuan listened, the more she felt that something was amiss. She frowned slightly and said sourly, "Are you envious of her? If you like, I can transfer all the businesses under my name to you. Other than that, I can also hand over my salary and private money to you for safekeeping." The hidden meaning was that she could do what he could do, or even more than him. She didn't have to be envious of others at all. Chem? Su Yiyan's attention was instantly attracted, and her focus was a little crooked. "You actually hid money behind my back." Xuanhuan was speechless. Chapter 1062. Ahem. Xuanhuan felt that he needed to defend himself. Actually, it's not considered a private stash. It's just the basic funds for the company's operations. I see. Su Yiyan muttered and stared at him with a half-smile. "Okay, I'm just kidding. I don't want your private stash, nor am I envious of Xiaoqi. I'm just happy for her. Children from single-parent families have it harder than ordinary children. Her mother's family doesn't recognize her and her mother, so they've been living a hard life all these years. She and her mother are very strong-willed, so there's a limit to how much I can help them. Now that there's someone who's willing to stand up for her, dote on her, and give her the best things, I'm very happy. Everything will be fine." Xuanhuan lowered his head and kissed Su Yiyan's forehead. "I hope so." Ning Xiyuan didn't disappoint Su Yiyan. He and Ling Xiaoqi started dating with the intention of getting married. Everyone in the family, including Ning Chirue, who was always running around and having fun, knew about Ling Xiaoqi's existence. It could be said that the two families had long regarded Ling Xiaoqi as part of their family. When they heard about the troubles in Ling Xiaoqi's family and knew that Ning Xiyuan wanted to stand up for her, they didn't have any objections. They even brainstormed together to help him think of a way to quickly bring down a certain scumbag father's company. The Qin family was considered a respectable family in their world, but in front of the Ning and Qi families, this was not enough. Ning Xiyuan just worked with a few partners to secretly suppress the Qin family's company for a period of time, and the Qin family's company's capital chain was broken. The small shareholders in the company saw that the situation wasn't good and began to sell their shares. Some of the management-level employees heard the news and started to resign one after another. In just a few days, the huge company fell apart. By the time Qin Fengde reacted, the company had already become an empty shell. However, this wasn't the worst. Qin Fengde hadn't even thought of a way to get through this terrible crisis before he was completely knocked down by another piece of bad news. He, who had always been at home, had never expected that there would be a day when the wheel of fortune would turn on him. He had been cheated on by his own wife. The one who cheated on Qin Fengde was an executive in his company and also his wife's first love. This man met Mrs. Qin in university and fell in love with her. However, because of his poor family background, Mrs. Qin's family forcefully broke him up and even used some tricks to chase him away. Not long after, Mrs. Qin's parents quickly arranged a marriage for her, and the man was Qin Fengde. From this point of view, Qin Fengde could actually be considered as one of the accomplices in separating this pair of ill-fated Mandarin ducks. However, at that time Mrs. Qin was still young. Even though she was stubborn and did a series of shocking things to ruin this marriage, in the end she couldn't resist the pressure from her family and the destruction of reality. She compromised and married Qin Fengde. When they first got married, Qin Fangde was at his worst. It wasn't that Mrs. Qin didn't fight with him, but later on, she had a son. Mrs. Qin, on the other hand, settled down and focused on raising the child. She completely treated this child as her only spiritual support. Because of this, when she reunited with her first love after so many years and the other party was still deeply in love with her and took the initiative to pursue her, Mrs. Qin cared about her son and didn't immediately accept this former first love. Chapter 1063. At that time, no one would have thought that Mrs. Qin's only son would die a few years later. Just look at Ling Xiaoqi's fate in her previous life. How crazy would a mother become after losing her child? Her son's death was the last straw that broke Mrs. Qin's back. Qin Fangde couldn't wait to bring his illegitimate daughter home and let her replace his son as the heir of the Qin family. This also erased the last bit of affection Mrs. Qin had for her husband. From then on, Mrs. Qin had no qualms about sleeping with her ex-lover and used her position to transfer the company's assets. When Qin Fangde caught her in bed, Mrs. Qin was very calm, as if she had expected this day to come. Since you've already found out, I don't have to waste my breath. I'll have someone send the divorce agreement over in a bit. Sign it and I'll move out. How dare you, how? Qin Fangde was so angry that his whole body trembled and his face turned green. Mrs. Qin sneered and said mockingly, "Why wouldn't I dare? You're allowed to fool around with a bunch of women, but I'm not allowed to find a man? Compared to you who changes women every few months, I only have this one man. I'm already giving you a lot of face." Qin Fangde's face darkened when he heard this. He raised his hand to slap Mrs. Qin but was stopped by her adulterer. Qin Fangde's body had been hollowed out by years of sensual pleasures. How could he be a match for Mrs. Qin, his first love, who worked out all year round? After being pushed by him, she staggered back a few steps and almost fell. He finally steadied himself and his face was as dark as the bottom of a pot. You, what's wrong with us? You want to hit me? Did I say something wrong? What right do you have to hit me? I've dealt with a lot of women for you all these years. If it wasn't for Xuanhu, I would have divorced you a long time ago. Now that Xuanhu is gone, your heart isn't with our family anymore. Just divorce, it'll be good for everyone. Qin Fangde's eyes were red and his face was twisted. Impossible, don't think I don't know what you're trying to do. Do I look like such a stupid person to divorce you and let you two live together? You want a divorce? No way. Qin Fangde was naturally unwilling to wear this green hat, but he had his own considerations. Mrs. Qin was a member of the D family. Back then, the marriage between the two families was because both families were well matched in terms of social status. Marriage would benefit both families' businesses. Although the D family's development was not as good as the Qin family's, they still had some assets. Now he was about to go bankrupt with a huge debt. At this juncture, if he really let her divorce him, he would have to bear all these debts alone. On the other hand, if the two of them did not divorce, their assets would be joint assets and so would their debts. Although she was a married daughter, she was still a member of the D family. If he really had to go into debt, the D family would help him out for Mrs. Qin's sake so that he wouldn't have to live in such a miserable state. It could be said that Mrs. Qin was Qin Fangde's only hope right now. How could he let her go just because he was angry? Mrs. Qin's expression changed when she heard this. She looked at the man who had been entangled with her for more than 20 years. There was no longer any affection in her eyes. All that was left was a strong sense of anger and resentment. You don't agree? Do you still think you're the high and mighty CEO of the Qin Corporation? Qin Fangde, wake up. You've long been deserted by everyone. Now anyone can crush you like an ant. Chapter 1064. You shameless b****, you promiscuous b****. Qin Fangde was a male chauvinist to begin with, so how could he tolerate a woman talking about him like that? Moreover, this woman used to depend on him. Immediately, without a care, he pounced on the tall and strong man in front of Mrs. Qin. Unfortunately, the man was prepared. When he saw Qin Fangde pouncing on him, he didn't dodge. Instead, he took the initiative and kicked Qin Fangde's chest. With a bang, Qin Fangde fell to the ground. His face was twisted in pain, and he glared at the two of them as if he was dipped in poison. He couldn't wait to tear them apart. If I'm a promiscuous b****, then you're a b****, who only thinks about the lower half of your body. Mrs. Qin looked down at Qin Fangde with indescribable coldness and disappointment in her eyes. Qin Fangde, you better understand that I'm not asking for your opinion. I'm just informing you. You better know what's good for you and obediently sign the divorce agreement. Otherwise, we have plenty of ways to deal with you. You're no longer the person in charge of the Qin Corporation that everyone fawns over. Anyone can step on a drowning dog. With that temper of yours, you've offended at least a few dozen people, if not hundreds. One spit from each of them can drown you. Not to mention my family has long disliked you. You probably don't want those enemies of yours to know that you, Qin Fangda, are not only useless, but also have such a big cuckold on your head, right? It's embarrassing that I've been cuckolded, but if this gets out, aren't you afraid that people will say that you're shameless and fickle? Reputation is something that only the poor should consider. Just like how you've had so many women outside before, would you care about what others say? After leaving you, I'm still the young lady of the D family. No matter how much they look down on me and how much they say behind my back, they wouldn't dare to really do it in front of me. But it's different for you. Hearing this, Qin Fangda's expression changed again. Just as the person in front of him said, although he didn't openly have women outside, he didn't deliberately hide it either. For one, he didn't think it was something shameful for a man. For another, he thought that those who criticized him behind his back were just jealous of him. Moreover, those people who couldn't even make him look at them directly, no matter how bad they were behind his back, wouldn't they have to pretend to be mute in front of him? But now he was like a tiger in a flat land. Being cuckolded wasn't something he should be proud of. These people didn't dare say anything in front of the D family, but they would definitely run to him. Qin Fangda's face turned even uglier at the thought of the possible humiliation he would suffer after this matter was exposed. Mrs. Qin saw the change in his expression, and the mockery in her eyes intensified. Since I've already said what I wanted to say, I'll move out today. I'll give you 1 day to think about it. I want to see the divorce agreement tomorrow. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. I'm UBB, Qin Yan. When Su Yiyan heard about this, he was completely dumbfounded. Qin Fangda's wife took her old lover as her first love's lover and made Qin Fangda a cuckold? This was too unexpected. Su Yiyan's impression of this woman was still limited to Ling Xiaoqi's one-sided description of her in his previous life and the pile of information he found after the investigation. He had no idea that there was such a thing behind the scenes. Chapter 1065. That's not right. After the initial shock, Su Yiyan quickly realized that something was wrong. Didn't Mrs. Qin have an affair with Qin Fangda's brother? Where did this first love come from? Could it be that the information back then was wrong? It's not really wrong. Based on the information, Mrs. Qin was probably forced to break up with her current lover. Not long after that, her family arranged for her to meet Qin Fangda and wanted to set them up. Unexpectedly, this aroused Mrs. Qin's rebellious mentality. She didn't follow her family's arrangement to develop a relationship with Qin Fangda. Instead, she took the initiative to hook up with Qin Fangda's brother. However, because of the Qin family's internal power struggle, Qin Jinghong got into trouble. Qin Fangda was the only healthy person left in the Qin family. She had no choice but to follow her family's arrangement and marry Qin Fangda. After listening to xuanhuan's explanation, Su Yiyan only felt shocked and ironic. Rebellious mentality? Her rebellious mentality really came late. If she was really so unwilling, she wouldn't have broken up with him back then. Who was she trying to disgust by doing this after they had already broken up? Sometimes people were so contradictory. She had already made a choice, but because she didn't want others to think that she was weak and betrayed him first, she would cover her ears and steal the bell. Little did she know that these actions just proved that she was guilty. They divorced? They did. Her lover was quite capable. He forced Qin Fangda to spend a lot of money and didn't let Mrs. Qin suffer any losses. Su Yiyan snorted coldly. This is called evil people will be dealt with by evil people. This isn't the most infuriating thing. The most infuriating thing is that after the divorce, Qin Fangda found out that this adulterous couple had already started to transfer assets. After the divorce, not only did he lose most of his efforts to Mrs. Qin, but he also completely emptied his funds. In a fit of anger, he had a stroke and was hospitalized. When Su Yiyan heard this, she didn't know why, but she suddenly felt that it was a bit unreal. This man who had been haunting Ling Xiaoqi for more than 20 years actually had a stroke and collapsed? If he had a stroke just like that, then his company? Xuanhuan didn't answer directly but tactfully told the truth. Even if he didn't have a stroke, he couldn't keep the company. It was just that this stroke of his had unknowingly sped up the biting of the various forces. Not long after, Su Yiyan received news from the other side. Qin Fangda was hospitalized after a stroke, and various forces were busy carving up his company. Those mistresses who had been kept by him in the past only wanted his money and the position of the Qin family's legal wife. Now that Qin Fangda had collapsed, they couldn't wait to run away. How could they walk right into the trap? Because of Mrs. Qin's actions back then, Qin Fangda didn't have any other illegitimate children. His only daughter hated him like an enemy. After being hospitalized for a few days, Qin Fangda didn't even see a shadow of a person who came to visit him. He had to rely on the nurses for his daily needs. If it wasn't for his death at this time, it would be easy for others to use against him in the fight for the family property. Qin Fangda might not even be able to get this last bit of decent treatment. Of course, this wasn't anything to be happy about. When the fight for the family property was over, a cripple like him would be completely useless, and his good days would come to an end. Just when Su Yiyan thought that this family's troublesome matter would come to an end, and that Qin Fangda, who had lost all his support, would be in an incomparably miserable future, there was a huge turning point. Chapter 1066. What did you say? Qin Fangda's son's death has something to do with Mrs. Qin's lover? To be precise, it has something to do with the Qin family and her lover. Although Su Yiyan had guessed that Qin Fangda's son's death might have been intentional, she was still a little shocked when it was confirmed. Forget about the Qin family. Qin Fangda's son was his chosen heir. If they wanted to seize power, killing him was the best shortcut. What's up with that lover of yours? Didn't I tell you before? This lover was deeply in love with Mrs. Qin. Many years later, when they met again, he was still thinking about her and wanted to be with her. However, because Mrs. Qin cared about her son, she never agreed. Su Yiyan froze. So he took her son. Yeah. The fastest way to get to the finish line was to get rid of all the obstacles along the way. This man wanted to get Mrs. Qin, but Mrs. Qin didn't want to accept him because of her son. Therefore, he decided to go all the way and get rid of Mrs. Qin's son. He was ruthless and stupid. He didn't realize that when he did this, he had unavoidably become a knife in someone else's hand. After Su Yiyan heard xuanhuan's explanation, she was silent for a long time before she sneered. Deeply in love? He clearly knew that the child was a piece of flesh that fell from the mother's body, yet he was so ruthless as to kill him. Mrs. Qin probably didn't want or dare to accept such a deep love, right? As Su Yiyan said this, she seemed to realize something and asked, "Does Mrs. Qin know about this?" She already knows. Then she's crazy? That's right, Mrs. Qin was crazy. This woman, who finally got a divorce certificate and thought that she could live happily ever after with her lover, suddenly found out the bloody truth and went crazy. She took a knife and stabbed her lover. Then she took the knife and ran to see her other old lover, Qin Fangda's fourth brother, Qin Jinghong. After stabbing the two main culprits, she even drove her car to hit Qin Jinghong's two sons. Su Yiyan was dumbfounded when she heard this. She had guessed that Mrs. Qin would not let these people off easily for the sake of her son. However, she did not expect Mrs. Qin to be so crazy after finding out the truth and kill everyone on her own. He didn't give those people a way out, and he didn't give himself a way out. All dead? Her lover and Qin Jinghong are dead. Of the two sons who were hit by the car, one is in a vegetative state, and the other has a leg amputated. Su Yiyan sucked in a breath of cold air. Then Mrs. Qin, he's dead too. There was an oil leak in the car after the collision. She lit the fire herself. Su Yiyan pursed her lips and said nothing. Xuanhuan saw that she couldn't bear it, so she took the initiative to ask, "Do you know who revealed this to Mrs. Qin?" Su Yiyan froze and immediately realized that they must have thought of a backup plan before doing this. Moreover, it had been 2 to 3 years since the incident, so Mrs. Qin couldn't have found out by herself. Who was it? It was Qin Jinghong. Qin Jinghong? Su Yiyan's eyes narrowed. How is that possible? Why would he expose his own shortcomings? Is he crazy? Of course, he wouldn't reveal that he was the mastermind. He only accidentally revealed the truth that Mrs. Qin's son's accident was orchestrated by her lover. Chapter 1067. Su Yiyan was even more confused when she heard this. Why would he do that? For revenge. Revenge? Su Yiyan had a flash of inspiration. Because of what happened back then? Back then, Mrs. Qin was forced to break up with her boyfriend. She didn't want to accept the marriage arranged by her family so quickly, so she took the initiative to seduce Qin Jinghong to discuss Qin Fangda. Later, Qin Jinghong failed to seize power. Although he survived, he was paralyzed from then on. Mrs. Qin immediately abandoned him and threw herself into Qin Fangda's arms. Because of this, any man with a little self-respect would never forget the humiliation this woman brought to him. It wasn't strange that Qin Jinghong would do something like this. Su Yiyan pursed her lips. Karma was a circle and retribution was not good. Mrs. Qin probably never thought that she would taste the bitter fruit of her actions back then more than 20 years later. Since Qin Jinghong pushed that lover out, He must be confident that this matter wouldn't implicate him. Then why did Mrs. Qin still? Have you heard of this saying? What? The mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Xuanhuan pinched his wife's confused little face and said with a smile, Qin Jinghong was the one who pushed her lover. Qin Jinghong, on the other hand, was pushed out by Ning Xiyuan. Su Yiyan's eyes widened. You mean, that's why I said that guy was an old fox in sheep's clothing. He knew everything and didn't do anything on the surface. He only pushed them when necessary and let them kill each other. Su Yiyan breathed a sigh of relief when she figured out the true identity of the person behind this. This means that he did put in a lot of effort. But Su Yiyan frowned. Did Mrs. Qin do something to Xiaoqi? That day, out of caution, she even reminded Ling Xiaoqi that she and Ning Xiyuan not only had their eyes on Qin Fangda, but also had to be wary of Mrs. Qin. Now that Ning Xiyuan was treating her so harshly, it was most likely because Ling Xiaoqi had gone back and told him what she had found out. That was why he was so ruthless to her. As the saying goes, killing a person's heart. Giving a person who had been pushed to the brink of despair when they thought that they could finally throw away the past and start anew was crueler than letting them despair from the beginning. Su Yiyan should have felt sympathy for her, but when she thought of Ling Xiaoqi's miserable ending in her previous life, she felt that sympathy was a luxury. She had been wrong from the very beginning, and it was a huge mistake for her to involve innocent people in this mess. Now that she had ended up like this, it was the price she had to pay for making so many mistakes. She couldn't blame anyone else. The battle between the sandpiper and the clam came to an end just like that under Ning Xiyuan's careful planning. The only winners were Ning Xiyuan, the fisherman who had been hiding until the very end, and Ling Xiaoqi who had never been involved in this matter. Su Yiyan finally noticed what was going on at Dou Tianyi's side after watching the Qin family's drama for a few days. The person in charge of the Dou Corporation suddenly fell ill and was hospitalized for emergency treatment. The corporation is leaderless and its stock price plummeted? Su Yiyan's first reaction when she saw the news was that it was impossible. Dou Tianyi's condition shouldn't have deteriorated so quickly. Moreover, he was clearly the male lead of this world. It's true. The sudden voice behind her startled Su Yiyan. She turned around and realized that it was xuanhuan. It's true? Yeah, Dou Tianyi was hospitalized a week ago and hasn't been out since. Does he not want to come out or can't come out? Chapter 1068. He can't get out. Xuanhuan handed a medical report to Su Yiyan. His condition has deteriorated, and he needs to wear all kinds of auxiliary treatment equipment for a long time. He will die in less than 3 hours after taking off these equipment. Su Yiyan took the report and looked surprised. How can it deteriorate so quickly? Can he really live to 30 years old in his current condition? Holding the report in his hand, Su Yiyan quickly noticed that something was wrong. How could Xuanhuan have Dou Tianyi's medical report? Considering the recent situation of the Dou family's company, Su Yiyan suddenly looked up at Xuanhuan and asked tentatively, "Did you do the Dou family's business?" "Was me." "When did it happen? What did you do?" Xuanhuan looked into Su Yiyan's bright eyes and didn't hide anything. "Quite early. The first time Xuanhuan noticed this guy was when the other party started investigating Su Yiyan. At that time, Xuanhuan only gave the other party a small warning and destroyed part of their company's business as a warning. Who knew that this person didn't restrain himself, but became more aggressive and dared to attack Su Yiyan in public. This really angered Xuanhuan and made him serious about attacking Dou Tianyi's company. I asked someone to contact Dou Tianyi's aunt. Not long after Dou Tianyi sent people to arrest Su Yiyan. Dou Tianyi's aunt? He has an aunt. Didn't you say that most of his family members are already? His aunt got married a long time ago. When the Dou family was in chaos, it didn't affect her much. I see. Su Yiyan suddenly understood. Then you contacted her. Is it useful? There are few people left in the Dou family. Now there are even fewer people who still have shares in the company and have a certain right to speak. She happens to be one of them. Moreover, it wasn't as if she didn't have any thoughts of seizing power. I just gave her a chance and something to rely on. You want them to kill each other and then buy Dou Tianyi's company? I'm not interested in that company. Xuanhuan hesitated for a moment and decided to be honest with Su Yiyan. Actually, what happened to Grandpa was related to him. Su Yiyan's hand paused abruptly. What did you say? Grandpa's matter had something to do with him? Is he the one behind Qing Fenglang and Song Yunyuan? Yes. Su Yiyan's face was as black as the bottom of a pot. She suddenly recalled the words and threats that Dou Tianyi had said to her over the phone. So, it wasn't that he didn't do anything, but that she didn't realize it. How dare he, how dare he? Su Yiyan was so angry that her whole body trembled. She wished she could run to the hospital right now and beat the half-dead person up. Xuanhuan sighed and reached out to pull her into his arms. He comforted her. It's okay. He won't have the chance to hurt you and your family again. Okay. Su Yiyan responded and began to ask the system in her mind. System, if Do Channy dies now, will the progress of snatching the Goldfinger be full? Will this world still collapse? In theory, the existence of the world's male lead has a great impact on the world's female lead halo. However, because the original novels are mostly based on the female lead's vision, and the host's partner are already more than 3/4 of the way to snatch the Goldfinger, the death of the world's male lead won't cause the world to collapse for the time being. In other words, Do Channy's early death wouldn't cause the world to collapse. Instead, it would increase the progress of snatching the Goldfinger by a large margin. It might even be full. Chapter 1069. Realizing this, Su Yiyan subconsciously tightened her arms around Xuanhuan's waist. Xuanhuan immediately felt it. He lowered his head and asked, "Are you still worried?" Su Yiyan shook her head and smiled at him as if relieved of a heavy burden. "I just suddenly realized that some things may end early." Xuanhuan raised his eyebrows. He intuitively felt that Su Yiyan's words had a hidden meaning, but since she didn't say it clearly, he didn't ask further. Su Yiyan was so angry that she had already sharpened her knife to attack the male lead. At that time, Wen Jingping was still unaware that she was about to lose her last bargaining chip. After losing Yin Jihong's support and being chased out of the crew, Wen Jingping was like a rat crossing the street. Wherever she went, people would look at her with strange eyes. Wherever she went, there would be all kinds of people who she didn't know at all who took the initiative to run up to her and mock her and make things difficult for her. After a few times she didn't even dare to go out. She could only hide in the rented room alone, feeling as if she had been abandoned by the whole world. Wen Jingping prayed countless times that God would send the next hero to save her from this difficult situation. However, God obviously didn't hear her prayers. Or rather, God didn't intend to open the back door for her. Wen Jingping closed the door and hid for a few days. She didn't wait for her hero, but waited for Ding Juesi, who was haunting her. "Xiaoping, I'm here to find you. How have you been during this time? Did anyone bully you? I've heard about what happened to the crew. They actually treated you like this when I wasn't around. Don't worry, I'll help you vent your anger." Ding Juesi squeezed through the door excitedly. He didn't notice Wen Jingping's frightened expression as if she had seen a ghost. Wen Jingping didn't expect that he would come to find her. While she was in a daze, Ding Juesi had already squeezed through the small gap in the door. Wen Jingping couldn't shut him out anymore. Ding Juesi entered the rented house as if he had entered his own home. He didn't know how to be polite at all. "You." Wen Jingping followed behind him with a stiff face. Just as she was about to say something, Ding Juesi suddenly turned around and hugged her. Wen Jingping was shocked. She struggled to move back, but Ding Juesi held her so tightly that she didn't have a chance to resist. "I'm divorced." These short words caused Wen Jingping's entire body to stiffen, and she was at a loss for what to do. No one knew better than Wen Jingping why Ding Juesi got a divorce. At this moment she did not feel guilty about this matter. She was only worried. "I'm free now. I'm single," Ding Juesi said as he pulled away from Wen Jingping. He looked into her eyes and said excitedly, "I know that you deliberately kept a distance from me because I still had a family and wasn't single. You were afraid that others would think that you were a bad woman who seduced others maliciously. Now that I'm single, status, money, love, I can give you everything you want. I'm worthy of you. From now on, no one will talk about my previous marriage. We can be together forever. Are you willing to marry me?" What she was afraid of really came true. Wen Jingping looked at this inexplicably excited man with a pale face. She didn't understand how things had developed to this point. She didn't know how she could get out of this awkward situation and get rid of this sticky candy that she couldn't shake off no matter what. Chapter 1070. Before Wen Jingping could think of an excuse, the sharp mechanical voice sounded first. "Warning, warning. The host cannot have a relationship beyond friendship with men other than the male protagonist, especially not have any physical relationship with men other than the male protagonist. Otherwise you will be severely punished by the system." Otherwise you will be severely punished by the system? Wen Jingping shuddered and subconsciously pushed Ding Juesi away. "Little Ping?" Ding Juesi looked at Wen Jingping in confusion and surprise. Wen Jingping pursed her lips and braced herself to say, "Brother? Brother Ding, you misunderstood. I never wanted to destroy your family. I just treat you as an older brother." Green tea special saying, I only treat you as an older brother. It was even crueler than giving out the good guy card. When Ding Juesi heard her say that, his face went blank for a moment, and then it became distorted. He tried hard to take a few deep breaths before he could barely maintain the calmness on his face. He said stiffly, Are you worried about me and my wife? No, I should say about me and my ex-wife? Don't worry. I've already divorced her and the children belong to her. Now we're minding our own business. She won't come looking for trouble with you. Wen Jingping was a little annoyed when she heard what he said. What does it have to do with me whether you're divorced or not? Why do I have to be with you if you're divorced? Literature on the 19th floor. Even if you're divorced from your ex-wife won't come looking for trouble with me in the future, but those self-proclaimed righteous defenders won't let me off easily. In the eyes of these people, your divorce has something to do with me. If I really get together with you, won't I be the mistress of another family? Although her current reputation wasn't any better, she wasn't a fool. Wouldn't the title of a mistress who hooked up with a married man be the same as pushing her to a dead end? When Jingping pulled Ding Juesi's hand away from her arm without a trace, she avoided his gaze and said softly, Brother Ding, you've really misunderstood. I really only treat you as an older brother. Don't be like this. You're scaring me. Ding Juesi's face darkened on the spot. However, looking at her expression, he didn't harden his heart. Instead, he found an excuse for her. You're lying to me, right? Did someone force you? Tell me, I'll protect you. Is it Yin Jihong who forced you to say that? The more Ding Juesi spoke, the more he felt that he had guessed correctly. When he thought of the rumors he had heard after returning to the set, he tightened his grip on Wen Jingping. Did he find trouble with you? Did he threaten you? Don't be afraid, I'll protect you. Wen Jingping was hurt by his grip, and the disgust and impatience in her eyes increased. However, when she saw Ding Juesi's crazily twisted face, she was still terrified. She hurriedly asked the system to exchange the few remaining points for tools to use on Ding Juesi. After making sure that he wouldn't hurt her, she put on a guilty and sad expression and said in a low voice, No one threatened me and no one forced me. What I said is true. I only treat you as an older brother. As for Mr. Yin. Chapter 1071. Ding Juesi was on the verge of collapsing. It took him a long time to recover from the huge shock. His face was as pale as a sheet of paper. What did you say? You and him, you. Although Wen Jingping was a little afraid of the person in front of her, she thought that if she did not use this opportunity to make this man give up on her, she might have to face this person's endless pestering in the future. Wen Jingping gritted her teeth and continued the lie. Brother Ding, I'm sorry. I can't lie to you and I can't lie to myself. Feelings aren't something I can control. My feelings for Mr. Yin are really... You're lying to me. Before Wen Jingping could finish speaking, Ding Juesi had already shouted first. He grabbed Wen Jingping's arm. His eyes were red, and it was obvious that he was on the verge of an emotional breakdown. I abandoned my wife and children for you. Now you're telling me that you like someone else. Are you playing with me? Although Wen Jingping was mentally prepared, she was still shocked when Ding Juesi grabbed her arm. Her face turned pale. Brother Ding, calm down first. That's not what I meant. Then what do you mean? Ding Juesi seemed to have lost control of his emotions. Even the items that Wen Jingping had exchanged for were not working. You want to abandon me and run away with another man and you want me to calm down? How do you want me to calm down? How do you want me to calm down? Wen Jingping was stunned by Ding Juesi's shout. After a while she said in a trembling voice, Don't be agitated. I'm not good enough for you. Don't talk to me about this nonsense. Let me ask you one thing. Are you willing to be with me? Are you willing to marry me? Before she could finish speaking, Ding Juesi took a step forward and forced Wen Jingping to a corner. He threatened in a low voice, I don't care if you're really reserved or pretending to seduce me. It's all thanks to you that I've become like this. It's best if you're willing. If you're not. Wen Jingping's expression changed slightly. She was afraid that he would really do something to her, so she subconsciously asked the system for help. System, what should I do? He seems to have gone crazy. Will he attack me? I'm alone now. If we really fight, I won't be able to beat him. What should I do? Think of a way to save me. The favorable impression points collected by the host during this period of time are too low. You are unable to exchange them for supplementary items. Please think of a way to get out of this predicament. To sum it up, if you want me to help you without any benefits, you'll have to pray for yourself. Wen Jingping was so angry that she ground her teeth. If not for the fact that the timing was not right, she would have cursed on the spot. In the end, Wen Jingping admitted defeat when she met Ding Juexi's cold and stern gaze. She lowered her head slightly and said softly, "It's my blessing that Brother Ding is willing to be with me. I'm just worried that they will misunderstand Brother Ding because of me and get you scolded." Ding Juexi's expression finally improved when he heard her words. He coaxed her in a low voice, "No, they will only envy me and be jealous of me. Even if you're unhappy, you won't dare to say anything in front of me. You don't have to mind it at all." Okay. Wen Jingping lowered her eyes to hide the annoyance and impatience in her eyes. Initially, she thought that she could buy some time by admitting defeat so that she could think of a better way to get rid of this person. However, she did not expect that after Ding Juexi comforted her, his hands would start to touch her waist dishonestly. Chapter 1072. Wen Jingping was shocked. She instantly understood what he wanted to do and she felt terrible. As if to further confirm her guess before she could think of a reason, the sharp mechanical voice sounded again. "Warning, warning. It has been detected that the male supporting character, Ding Juexi, who has already conquered the male supporting character, has thoughts of crossing the line with the host. Host, please think of a way to stay away from the male supporting character as soon as possible to avoid irreversible consequences." Wen Jingping bit her lip. It was easy for him to say. If she could run away, she would have done so long ago. Why would she wait until now to pretend to be a snake with this disgusting man? Little Ping. Ding Juexi did not notice the pure disgust in Wen Jingping's eyes. He lowered his head and moved closer to Wen Jingping's ear. His breath landed on the side of her neck. His rapid and hot breath gave Wen Jingping goosebumps all over her body. Wen Jingping understood that she could not avoid the situation at this point. She also knew that if she did not take action, something irreversible might really happen. She was completely forced into a dead end. She gritted her teeth and screamed, "Brother Ding, behind you!" Ding Juexi was stunned. He instinctively looked behind him. Wen Jingping seized the opportunity when he was distracted. She used all her strength to push him forward. Ding Juexi was completely unprepared for her to do this. He staggered a few steps back and almost fell. When he finally stabilized himself, Wen Jingping had already taken the opportunity to rush to the half-closed door. When Ding Juexi squeezed himself into the room, Wen Jingping was already a little scared. She was worried that he would force himself on her, so she did not close the door tightly. However, before a person encountered the worst thing, they would always have a little bit of hope in their hearts. Wen Jingping was the same. However, Ding Juexi's actions after entering the room had undoubtedly smashed Wen Jingping's little bit of hope into pieces. She did not expect Ding Juexi to be as obedient and selfless to her as before. She only wanted to cut ties with this person as soon as possible and have no contact with him. Wen Jingping had just opened the iron door when Ding Juexi reacted. He quickly rushed to her, grabbed her hair and pulled her back. Wen Jingping had just taken a step out of the door when he pulled her back. It was so painful that she almost cried. Seeing that she was about to be pulled back into the room, she quickly grabbed the iron door at the side with both hands. She struggled and screamed, "Help! Murder! Help! Someone! Help! Help! Help!" The house that Wen Jingping's rented was especially remote and simple and crude. It was not an exaggeration to say that even if you farted in the house, the people next door would be able to hear it. Now that she was shouting at the top of her lungs, almost everyone in the building could hear her. For a moment, the surprised, curious tenants all opened their doors and looked in their direction. Wen Jingping's eyes lit up when she saw this. She shouted even more energetically, "Save me! Save me! This man wants to kill me. He wants to harm me." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Ding Juexi's face was livid. He glanced at the few men who were eager to come over and take a look. He said coldly, "My girlfriend is quarreling with me because of some things. Please don't meddle in other people's business." The few men who had wanted to save Wen Jingping when they saw her crying like a pear blossom in the rain stopped in their tracks when they heard this. They looked at each other and did not go forward. Wen Jingping panicked when she saw this. "No, don't listen to his nonsense. I'm not his girlfriend. He's lying. He wants to force himself on me and humiliate me. You can't leave me in the lurch. Save me, please save me."